Her marriage was decided for her, and on their wedding night, he said, "I'm not in a hurry, you'll make the first move when you're ready." Nobody asked her. Not her father, who signed the contract over brandy. Not her brother, who nodded along like it was already settled. Not the Earl himself, who sent a solicitor in his place to deliver the terms as though she were a parcel being redirected. Sophia Ashwell learned she was to be married on a Tuesday morning, between breakfast and her second cup of tea. And the worst part, the part she could not say aloud to anyone, was that she had already heard enough about Lord James Weston, Earl of Grayfield, to be terrified not of his cruelty, but of something far more dangerous. His kindness. He was not what she expected. She had prepared herself for cold formality, the kind of arranged marriage where two people occupy the same house and share nothing but a surname. She had built walls accordingly. Neat, solid, invisible walls that she intended to maintain with great discipline. Lord Weston arrived at their first meeting, a stiff afternoon tea arranged by both families, 12 minutes late, apologized to her specifically rather than the room, and spent the following hour asking her questions he appeared to genuinely want answered. Not about her accomplishments. Not about her accomplishments at the pianoforte or her skill with embroidery. About what she thought. "Do you want this marriage?" he asked, when the families had briefly stepped away and they were momentarily alone. Sophia stared at him. "I beg your pardon." "It is a simple question," he said. Not unkindly. "Do you want it?" "Does it matter?" she said carefully. Something moved in his expression, quiet and serious. "It matters to me," he said. "Considerably." She did not know what to do with that. So she said nothing. And he did not press her. But that night, alone in her room, she found herself replaying the question long after she should have been asleep. The wedding was everything arranged marriages are, beautiful on the surface and complicated beneath. The church was full. The flowers were perfect. Sophia walked down the aisle in her mother's altered gown feeling like a woman in someone else's story. James waited at the altar. He watched her come toward him with an expression she could not read, not triumphant, not indifferent. Careful. As though he understood the weight of what she was carrying and did not intend to add to it. When they were pronounced married and the church erupted quietly around them, he leaned slightly toward her and said, just for her, "You did very well." It was such an odd thing to say. Such a human thing. She nearly laughed, which she had not expected to do at her own wedding. Grayfield Manor was magnificent and slightly overwhelming, the way all truly old houses are, full of portraits of people who had opinions and rooms that had seen centuries. Sophia was given her own suite, her own sitting room, her own key. He showed her these things himself. No housekeeper. No formality. "This is yours," he said at the door of her rooms. "Entirely. I will never enter without your invitation." She looked at him. "That is, unusually generous." "It is the minimum," he said simply. And then, because it was their wedding night and because she was braced for something she did not want to navigate, she said, with her chin up and her voice steady, "I should tell you that I am not, that I don't feel." "Sophia." His voice was quiet. Not cutting her off, simply saying her name, the way one might set something fragile down carefully. "I am not in a hurry." He held her gaze with absolute steadiness. "You will make the first move when you are ready. If that is 6 months from now, or a year, or longer, that is entirely your decision. I will not rush you. I will not pressure you. I will simply be here." The hallway was very quiet. "Why?" she whispered. "Because you did not choose this," he said. "The least I can do is make certain that whatever comes next, you do." He said goodnight. He went to his own rooms. Sophia stood in the doorway of her suite for a long time before she went inside. The weeks that followed were not what she had braced herself for. James was present without being intrusive. He left books outside her sitting room door, ones she had mentioned in passing, which meant he had been listening when she hadn't realized. He rode with her in the mornings when she wished for company and did not appear when she did not. He argued with her, pleasantly and with genuine engagement, about history and land management and the proper way to approach a difficult neighbor, and he never once softened his opinion simply because she was his wife. She found she respected that enormously. She also found, against every careful wall she had constructed, that she was beginning to look for him in rooms before she entered them. It was Lady Harwick who poisoned it. She arrived for a county dinner in the 3rd month, a woman of considerable social standing and very little warmth, and she drew Sophia aside before the meal with the specific energy of someone delivering news they have been saving. "You know he agreed to this marriage for the Ashwell land," she said pleasantly. "Your father's northern estate borders Grayfield. James has wanted that land for years. The marriage contract includes a clause, full access to the border territory within the 1st year." She smiled. "I hope you haven't mistaken practicality for sentiment, my dear." Sophia said nothing. She returned to the dinner table. She sat beside James and spoke normally and ate almost nothing. He noticed. He always noticed. "What happened?" he said quietly, under the noise of the table. "Nothing," she said. He looked at her for a moment, and then, carefully, he did not push. Which was almost worse. Because a guilty man would have. She found the contract herself. 3 days later, in the estate office, because she needed to know. She read every clause. The land access was there. Exactly as Lady Harwick had described. And beneath it, an amendment, dated 2 weeks after their wedding, in James's hand, witnessed and signed. "I hereby relinquish all claims to the Ashwell Northern Territory, unconditionally and in perpetuity, returning full rights to my wife, Sophia Westonay Ashwell, as her sole and personal property, independent of the marriage." She sat down. She read it 3 more times. He had given it back. Quietly, without telling her, without using it as currency or confession. He had simply given it back. She found him in the library that evening. He looked up from his correspondence, and whatever he saw in her face made him set the pen down. "You found the amendment," he said. "Why didn't you tell me?" she asked. "Because I didn't want you to feel grateful," he said. "I wanted you to feel free." Sophia crossed the library, past the shelves and the firelight and 3 months of careful walls, and stopped directly in front of him. "You said I would make the first move," she said, "when I was ready." His expression shifted, cautious, open, entirely unguarded for the first time since she had known him. "Yes," he said quietly. She reached out and took his face in both hands, deliberately, completely, with full and certain choice, and kissed him. He went very still for one breath. And then his hands came up to hold her, gently, like something he had been waiting for without permitting himself to hope. When she drew back, his eyes were closed. "I have been ready," she said softly, "for longer than I intended to admit." He opened his eyes. Something in them was luminous and undone and entirely, quietly joyful. "Sophia," he said. Just her name. The way he always said it, like setting something precious down carefully. Outside, the Grayfield gardens lay silver under a full moon. Inside, the fire crackled warm and steady. And Sophia Ashwell, who had been given no choice about the beginning of this story, discovered that she had written the ending entirely herself. Which was, she thought, exactly as it should be.